When I first started reviewing, I had no plans of doing individual character studies. But this wouldn't be the first time this channel has been subjected to my whims. I've mentioned that I plan to finally catch up with Naruto when it ended, so that's what's recently consumed my anime life. Reviews for the manga and anime halves of Shippuden will be out eventually, but for now I'd like to take a closer look at one of the series' most neglected characters. Spoilers beware. So, Tenten. She doesn't even have a last name, but neither do quite a few of the more developed characters, so I won't linger on that. Let's start from the beginning. I began this analysis by comparing her to her peers, meaning the other female genin. For part 1, I'm not going to include Temari, as she's essentially a villain during the only part where Tenten is really an active character. My first question was a simple one. Is the only reason I find Tenten to be such a likable character because we're told so little about her? Of the 4, she's the only one who doesn't squander her already limited screen time with a petty rivalry or a totally unfounded romantic obsession. Which isn't to say I don't support some of those pairings, just that those aspects of their characters often took away from the other girl's character development as much as they added to it. At this point in time, Tenten is the only one with any serious career ambitions, as Hinata really is too passive for the shinobi lifestyle, originally anyway, and Sakura and Ino have been consumed by the woes of preteen love. She's the only one to be shown having a real interest in training, and she's praised for her prowess in her field, though we admittedly don't get to see much proof of this. Long story short, this was the easy question. No, I don't think my opinion was unfounded. Tenten has the basis to be a likable, strong female character, something that was seriously lacking at this point in the series. So what happened? Discounting the occasional filler episode where her team is showcased, Tenten really only has one battle pre-Shippuden, her Chunin exam fight, where she promptly gets her ass handed to her in all of 9 minutes. Half of that time is spent on crowd reactions and not the actual fight. And as much as they try to make her techniques look impressive, it's all too obvious that she's essentially powerless against Temari. To keep track of the comparison, Ino and Sakura's fight and Hinata's battle against Neji were each given 2 full episodes and an abundance of character-developing flashback. And again, discounting the filler arcs, the only noteworthy thing she does past this point is sit on the sidelines giving a never-ending monologue about how impressive Neji is. Now there is one filler arc I would like to discuss briefly, the last one, where all the Konoha genin all go on a mission together to help out their sand allies. Or almost all of them. I'll admit it, throughout the whole thing I thought someone was missing, but I accredited it to Sasuke being gone. It wasn't until Tenten herself addressed the matter that I realized my mistake, at which point we were treated to this little gem.
Why me? It's not fair, you know?
What are you talking about?
Why was I the only one who didn't get to go on that mission?
But you were otherwise engaged, Tenten! You were with another squad!
Everyone went except me!
She seems a little upset.
I am of the belief that the creators also forgot Tenten and added this on to cover themselves. Seriously, otherwise engaged with what other squad? Every single one of her peers was involved with this mission. But anyway, on to part 2. Tenten and her team make their appearance in Shippuden fairly early on, during the first official mission as a matter of fact. There are 2 noteworthy fights here. In one, each member of Guy's team is matched up against an essential clone of themselves. Tenten does about as well as any of her teammates, which was nice to see. The fight that I'm really looking at is Team Guy's fight with Kisame. Now, if you've seen a Neji 10 themed video since that episode aired, you probably know the scene I'm talking about. I don't want to read too much into this. My intent here was a full-scale character analysis and not to pick out every possible tiny clip I can to prove a point. I mostly bring this up because it too is an important aspect of Tenten's character. The other girls have their own personal, self-empowering moments. Tenten is the one I see pushing for female empowerment in general. She's the one we see pushing that women can be as powerful as men, and it's in her dreams specifically. She doesn't just want to be a great ninja, she wants to be a great female ninja. I think it's safe to say that Tenten is a feminist. But back to the fight in question. In the fight against Kisame, all three of Guy's students are on equal terms. They all have their own places and uses in this fight, but then, at the end, after being under equal conditions of duress, well, you don't see Neji having to hold Lee up. The point to be made in this scene is what's suggested, not what's openly said, that after all this time, Tenten is still significantly weaker than the other two. And I bring this up because I just don't really see it with the other teams. Granted, the other girls didn't all go under the great transformation that Sakura did, but I think it's safe to say that Hinata is at least on par with her teammates, and each member of Team 10 has their place. Choji's their brute strength, Shikamaru's their intelligence, and now Ino's acting as their medical ninja. The dynamic with Team Guy doesn't really seem to have changed at all. Neji and Lee are still their powerhouses, and Tenten is their designated female character who's kind of just off to the side. And now we reach some of the later stuff. I left out things like movies and filler arcs so this review wouldn't be too long-winded, but I actually spent a few hours sifting through the war episodes looking for something to talk about. My conclusion very much reflects Tenten's character as a whole. During the war, she does her part, but there's nothing that really stands out. In my eyes, Tenten's a perfectly likable character, but sometimes it feels like she exists solely because Team Guy needed another member. And this led me to the harder question to face. I mentioned that Tenten had the basis of a really likable character on the account that she's driven and level-headed and she doesn't have an annoying or pointless rivalry or love interest. But on top of this, she's also severely lacking in character background. We don't really know who her parents are or where her career ambitions stemmed from. I've had to face up to this dilemma. Is it possible to flesh out Tenten's character a little more without taking away all of her good points? If they'd incorporated some crazy, probably one-sided, rivalry with Hinata or an infatuation with Neji, she would more than likely have been a much more developed character. But because she has so little screen time as it is, these aspects would have taken over her character, and the likable aspects would have faded to the background. It seems like a lose-lose situation. On a bit of a side note, perhaps what's really appealing about Tenten is that she deviates from the Kunoichi formula in the first place. By that I mean, these romantic interests only seem really important to the female genin. Naruto's crush on Sakura doesn't totally define him the way Sakura's crush on Sasuke initially defines her. But anyway, time to wrap this up. This part will cover the most recent material, so spoilers beware. The epilogue gives us a little insight into what all the characters are doing now, probably because she's always seemed so career-driven, even if Tenten wasn't off doing something exciting. Well, at the very least I expected her to be training her own genin team, but it wasn't to be. Tenten seems to have been shunned into an early retirement, running a weapons shop where business is really slow due to this era of peace they're now living in. Look at her epilogue picture. Doesn't she look disappointed herself? When I look at Tenten, I see a character who had so much potential that nothing was done with. I don't think I actually have the authority to knight anybody, but as per the upload of this video, I have officially christened her Tenten the Disappointing. Thank you for watching.